Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Welcome to another edition of the Prospect Corner presented by the Hockey Writers. I am your host, Matthew Zator, joined by my co-host, Peter Baracchini and Greg Boysen. How's everyone today? It's hockey's just around the corner. It's basically here. I mean, we got regular season coming up. Everyone's doing fantasy drafts. It's an amazing time to be a hockey fan, that's for sure.
Absolutely. NHL, the juniors, WHL, OHL, QMJHL, it's already started. So you know what? Hockey's back. And you know what? With some news about fans coming back into the stadiums, let's get it going.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, got my first trip back to a press box next weekend for the AHL. So that I missed that. That's gonna be fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we'll
Good
have
stuff.
a lot more coverage on the AHL in the next few weeks then. As always, if you enjoy the show, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's so many shows out right now. We've got Blackhawks Banter, what Greg's on, Maple Leafs Lounge, Chicks and Sticks. The list goes on. Grind Line. We got so many shows on the channel right now, so definitely check that out. Hit the notification bell and you won't miss any episodes. And make sure you're subscribed to our Morning Skate newsletter. There's a lot of great stuff. We got some new contributors out there as well on that. And so basically sign up at morningskate.io. We're also on Discord. We're trying that out at the Hockey Lounge on Discord. We got all the writers there. Some great discussion, great debates, and it'll just keep going into the regular season. So definitely check that out as well. Today we're doing Chicago Blackhawks. We don't have a guest. We have Greg here. So, I mean, we don't really need another guy. So he's well versed with all the Chicago Blackhawks prospects, and we'll be diving into their prospect pool. We've gotten some comments on when Chicago is going to be on the show. So here they are. To start, like we always do, we're going to start with the 2021 draft recap and start off with their first round pick, which got a lot of debate on why they picked him and where they picked him. They did trade down as well. So, I mean, we'll see. But they picked Nolan Allan. They kind of went off the board. Nolan Allan was supposed to be down further in the draft, and we had him ranked so much further than the first round. So it was a big surprise when he got drafted 32nd overall. We'll start with you, Greg. Was it the right choice to pick Nolan Allan there? Yeah.
Let's the griping begin. No. And that's not a slam on Nolan Ryan. I think he's a fine player, and they're high on him. They already gave him his entry-level contract here in the last few days. He's going to be a solid stay-at-home defenseman, reliable, which is great. You need those on your teams, but you don't pick those guys in the first round, especially 2 rounds ahead of where you could have got him. Now, the Blackhawks didn't have a 3rd-round pick. They had 2 4th-round picks, but, so what if he's not there? You could have found another guy of his ilk. This team will, as we get further into this discussion, we're going to quickly find out that they don't have a lot of forwards in their prospect pool, especially dynamic forwards. And they're okay. They've got a really strong defensive pool, which, with all the additions they made this offseason, all those young guys now got more time to develop. So you really didn't need another defenseman at this spot. They definitely could have gone elsewhere. Even if they were going to go defenseman, there were better options available too. So again, no disrespect to Nolan Allan. He may turn out to be a fine stay-at-home solid defenseman. He better at this point because of where you picked him, but he's a guy that you could have definitely gotten a lot later in the draft, or at least a player very similar. And I think it was just one of those situations that we see too many times in the Stan Bowman era of him trying to be the smartest guy in the room and maybe, oh my God, I can't believe he picked that guy. And then a lot of times those picks don't work out.
Yeah, we'll go to you, Peter. Do you think they should have just waited on Nolan Allan, or maybe they had some inside information that he wasn't going to be available later in the draft?
I mean, even if he wasn't going to be available later on in the draft, Greg nailed it on the head that, you could always find another prototypical stay-at-home defenseman in that third, fourth, fifth round draft. I mean, they plucked up Ethan Del Mastro, who I think probably, is the same mold as Nolan Allan, but brings more of a physical edge into that aspect. So they technically got two, type of, they basically got the same type of player in two different rounds. So to spend your first rounder on that kind of stay-at-home defenseman, like Greg mentioned, it just doesn't quite make sense when there's a whole lot of talent. And he mentioned the Barratt forward system that they already have. I mean, they could have gone with Prokhor Poltapov, who was literally taken one pick right after by the Buffalo Sabres. There's also Francesco Pinelli, Logan Stankoven, who both players, I'm pretty sure all of us had in the first round. So to let go a speedster in Stankoven or a smart two-way center in Pinelli just seems like a big mistake on their part and a big reach to try and get Nolan Allan.
Yeah. It's a great segue there. We're going to talk about who they should have picked. There's, like you said, there's so many other guys that they could have picked, even defensemen that would probably fit a bit better than Nolan Allan. Peter, who do you, like you mentioned a couple names there, who would you have picked if you were Stan Bowman at that point in the draft? Who would you have picked instead of who they did?
I'm just going to base it off of the assumption that they were still going to go for another defenseman if they were trying to go for Nolan Allan. So if you were trying to go for another D-man, obviously I was very big on Olen Zellweger. I had him as sort of a 45 to 50 range type of player for that range. He was taken 34th by the Anaheim Ducks. So he was very, very much available. He's got great speed and his playmaking abilities is just off the charts. That's what stood out to me. Shai Buium, who was also drafted later on. Alexei Heimosalmi, who's got a great two-way game, but more offensive production. So if I get that they wanted to try and go more of that in-your-face style that Allan brings, but a lot of great talent, a lot of great puck moving on the back end, and something that is missing in their system right now. Obviously, Duncan Keith is gone. He's in Edmonton, but he was already aging and he was past his prime. They don't have a solid puck moving defenseman. If they were able to, even Shai Buium, who's a bigger kind of player, but he still has that offensive ability to his game, you were able to get him, I think, or any of those players, I think it would have been a great pick no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. And Greg, who would you have picked in Stan Bowman's shoes in that point in the draft? Or would you have traded down? Would you have just stayed where they were?
Well, originally, before they traded, when they had the 11th pick overall, before they made the Seth Jones trade, I wanted him to go for one of the two goalies. But obviously, when they moved down to 32, then that wasn't going to happen. And then I wanted a forward in that spot. I mean, they've got plenty of young defensemen, and then, as I just said, they went out and got Seth and Caleb Jones, Jake McCabe this offseason. So that now all of a sudden pushes all those young guys a year further back at least, which is great because some of those guys need more development. So I figured this was the time to get that forward, and there were plenty of forwards out there. Peter mentioned Logan Stankoven. That was the guy I was targeting at 32 when he was there. I was like, oh, that makes just way too much sense. So of course they didn't do it. A couple other guys that I would have gone for there, Atu Ratu was a guy available. I mean, this was a guy, we talked a lot about him and prior to the draft. This was a guy that a year before, a lot of people were thinking could be the number one overall pick, and then had a real down year in Finland and dropped all the way to the mid-second round. But that was a guy that you could have been, there's some risk there, but at 32 to get a guy that, 12 months prior was considered a top 2 or 3 pick, that would have been a good move there. Or another guy I was high on that I kind of was disappointed was the guy you guys got up in Vancouver there, Matthew, and Daniil Klimovich. I would have loved him too. I mean, he would have been a better pick fitting their system need. And listen, I'm a guy that I preach, you can never have too many defensemen in your system. You win from the back end out, in my opinion. So, you know, I can't be too upset they went defenseman, but maybe just not this one. But, you know, as we love to say, as our unofficial tagline on this show, we shall see what happens. And maybe in 2 or 3 years, Stan Bowman is going to be hailed a genius for this pick, but I don't see that happening. If he is, he's probably going to be working for another team by then anyways.
Yeah. If I was the Blackhawks, I would have picked Scott Morrow at that point. You know, he's a great puck moving defenseman. Went to the Carolina Hurricanes at 40th overall. And I mean, he was ready to go in the first round by a few guys. So, I mean, I think they could have gone for a more mobile defenseman. I mean, Nolan Allan's pretty good as a two-way guy, but he's more that defensive side. So, yeah, I would have gone for more of a mobile offensive defenseman at that point. But, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Let's go to the rest of the draft. Blackhawks did have a few other picks, some strong picks, in my opinion. Greg, we'll start with you on this one. Who did you like that the Blackhawks picked outside of that first round?
I really like, I'm probably going to butcher his name, pronouncing it like an American, but correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But Victor Sternborg, excuse me, is a guy that I really liked in the fourth round. I think they got a lot of value out of that pick. He is he's built like a bowling ball at 5'10", already over 200 pounds, and he plays like a bowling ball moving downhill. I mean, he's got high energy, relentless motor, just never takes a shift off. He's got all that energy, and he's a superb defensive player at a young age. You know, he's playing over in Sweden in their top league, and his minutes have gone up. You know, he's very, so his motor and his defensive skills have him on the path to the NHL. I don't think you're ever going to get much offense out of him unless things change, but he could definitely be that fourth line guy that's just a pain in the butt and, you know, possibly a penalty killer. But anytime you can get a guy in the fourth round that ends up becoming a contributor, even on the bottom six, or on special teams at the NHL level, is a good pick. So I think that was outside of including the first round, that was probably my favorite pick of the draft.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. Peter, who you got?
I already mentioned him early on, and he was already named captain for the Mississauga Steelheads, is Ethan Del Mastro. I mean, I already talked about his physical in-your-face style that, you know, matches that of Nolan Allan. But the one thing that separates him from Nolan Allan, and I noticed this during the U18 World Championship, is he's a very fluid and mobile skater for his size. I mean, he's 6'4", 200 plus pounds. He can move like the wind. I mean, I was already enamored with his physical play. He stepped up early on and made some big hits, but his ability in transition to skate the play up and take advantage of his, you know, ability to move up, pick a lane, and push the play forward. I was really happy with that. So whether he is going to be in that, you know, top four range, I doubt it. Maybe he's going to be a very steady third pairing defenseman, but I've loved this play since then. Granted, minimal sample size in the OHL, considering that he missed a full season as well with a lot of players. But I'm really looking forward to see what he could bring this year for the Steelheads.
Yeah, I had Del Mastro as my pick, but I'll pick another guy in my plan B. Is Colton Dach. We'll talk about him a little later on, but so I won't go into too much detail on. But you know, he could be a good third, fourth line guy down the road. So I love Del Mastro where they picked him at fourth round. Like, this guy wasn't supposed to go that far down. So great pick there. So that's the 2021 draft. I'm going to talk about an article you just put out, Greg, on top 10 prospects that the Blackhawks have. No question. I mean, we can guess. We've heard his name a lot on Blackhawks Banter, is a guy named Lukas Reichel. Probably heard a lot about him, Blackhawks fans, in preseason. He's been very impressive. Greg, what do you project for Reichel this season? Is he going to be with the Blackhawks all year, or is he going to be in Rockford at points? What do you see for him?
Well, they already sent him down, so he's going to start the season in the AHL, which some people are upset over that, because he did look good in the preseason, but I think it was more of a business end where he was waiver exempt, where some other guys would have had to clear waivers, and so more of that than necessarily a statement on his play. But listen, he's never played in North America. Get him down in Rockford. Get him, a handful of games at the AHL level. Get used to it. They had a couple of preseason games the IceHogs did over the weekend, and he was playing center, which I think they still have some hope for him down the road. He was playing top line center minutes. That's important. Get a handful of games playing top line center, top power play unit at the AHL level is going to go further in a development at a kid his age than playing third or fourth line minutes in the NHL and not getting any of those key shifts. That's where you learn more. So maybe I would say this season, I still think he's going to be part of the Blackhawks roster. I still think he's going to play about 50 NHL games this year. I think this move down to Rockford is just temporary. So I mean, as far as projecting, I'm going to say 50 games, somewhere between 15 and 20 goals and 35 and 40 points. I think he's capable of putting that up. In the little bit he played in the preseason, he never looked overwhelmed. He never looked like the moment was too big for him. He was very confident. He was very aggressive. He was very noticeable. So I think he's as good as he advertised, and we're going to see him produce pretty well at the NHL level eventually this season.
Yeah, I think Reichel's going to be a heck of a player. I mean, there's no point in rushing him. I mean, you get him down to the AHL, it's not an indictment on who he is as a player, and he's going to be a great player regardless. And spend some time in the AHL and get some experience down there. Move to your second third ranked prospect was Drew Commesso, goaltender. Peter, we'll go with you on this one. When do you think we'll see him in the NHL? I mean, they obviously have Marc-Andre Fleury right now. He is up there in age. I mean, he's been around for a long time. They have Kevin Lankinen backing him up. He is, I guess, would say we're going to be the one above right now. When do you see Commesso pushing for an NHL job?
Well, he's only going into his second season at Boston University right now. So sophomore, 19 years old. I think the safe bet for me would probably be in that 4 to 6 year range, mainly because of the fact that, he already had solid numbers last season in 2020-21, where he had a .915 save percentage and 299 goals against, 6-3-1. 11 games played. I'm assuming that this year is going to be different. I'm assuming he's probably going to be getting a lot more starts, a lot more opportunities to be a starting goaltender. And obviously it's only one game, but he already has a .971 save percentage and a 1 goals against average. Obviously that's going to change, but he has a lot of promise. He has great mobility. He has great, he's able to track the puck very well in the crease, great reflexes. So I do think that he is going to dethrone, I'm thrown off right now. Kevin Lankinen. Sorry, there you go. A little bit late to the party there. And also with Marc-Andre Fleury, he's probably getting up there in age. I don't know how much longer he's going to have. I mean, if he's going to be the starter until Drew Commesso comes in, great. If we see Marc-Andre Fleury in his 40s, that's going to be fun. But after Marc-Andre Fleury's gone, I do think that Drew Commesso is going to be the guy to be the one to go into net and dethrone Lankinen, because the promise is there. I mean, he's still young, still a lot of time to develop. You don't want to rush the goalie, especially with someone who has starter potential right now. They have someone in him. I think it's going to be the right move for him to just wait it out, patience, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think personally, Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be there for a little bit, I think, still. Seems like he can play up until, I don't know, we'll see how long he's going to play, because I see he doesn't seem to be slowing down.
The goalie version of Jaromir Jagr.
Yeah, right. So we'll see what happens there. Greg, we'll go to you again on this. Blackhawks have got some injuries on the blue line. Couple guys that were supposed to make the roster, and Caleb Jones and Wyatt Kalynuk. They're both injured right now. Do you think Nicolas Beaudin, who's still part of the roster, do you think he'll make the final roster? And what do you think his overall ceiling is?
Yeah, I think with the injuries to Kalynuk and Jones, they're both going to be out about a month. So he'll start with the big club. I'm high on Beaudin. I really like him. I mean, I almost made him the number one prospect on the list. But you know, I put Reichel up there just because I think he'll be a bigger overall difference maker. I've been saying from like the last year or so before they traded Adam Boqvist that I've said I believe Adam Boqvist is going to be a good dynamic offensive defenseman, but both were taken in the first round the same year. I think Beaudin is going to be the better overall defenseman than Adam Boqvist. And his progression has been fantastic. I've been lucky enough to see most of his games, a lot of them in person, covering the IceHogs. The 2019-20 season, he really progressed from the opening night to when the season was canceled. You just saw his confidence go up, and that's his biggest attribute is his confidence. Last year was a rough season with the taxi squad. He played 21 games with the Hawks, or 20 games, and again, never looked out of place. Plays with comp, but every time he got sent back to Rockford or the taxi squad, he would go down to Rockford and have 2 points in a game and just be like, hey, listen. And he had the great attitude. I talked to him a few times after games. He always like, hey, this is part of the process. I'm going to come down here and try to be a better player and then take what I learned up to the next level. A lot of times you see those kids, they get that taste of the NHL, they go back to the AHL and they're pouting. They don't want to be there. And I get it. But, you know, his one thing he needs to work on, because he's a great skater, he's a fantastic passer, very underrated passer, plays well in his own zone. And one thing I think he needs to add to his arsenal to become a complete NHL player is he needs to get more confident and shoot more, work on that shot. If he can add a shot from that back end, he can be a complete NHL player. I think he's a top 4 defenseman when it's all said and done. I'm high on him. I'm hoping that he doesn't fall under the Stan Bowman trading first round picks. He's next on the list. I mean, if you go back, he's literally traded every first round pick he's ever made up until Nicolas Beaudin, and he traded Boqvist this summer. So he's next on the list. Hopefully he's the guy that ends that trend, because you got to stop trading these guys at some point. But I'm a big fan, and I think he will be a top 4 defender in the next couple of years.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of other guys that are on this top 10. Peter, anyone that you want to highlight from this top 10 that fans should be watching in the future?
I hate to sound biased because I've seen quite a bit of GTHL players in the days, but I'm going to say Mackenzie Entwistle, mainly because of the fact that, you know, the Blackhawks have lacked a very in-your-face, gritty, power forward type of player that has a hard shot and great mobility that can set up a play down low. It's been a while since we've seen a player like that. I do think that he has the potential to be that winger to complement that of, you know, I mean, he's going to be playing with, Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, whoever's on his line, that star-studded player. So I think he would provide that great balance that, you know, other teams like to have, which is why, you know, Edmonton went out, brought in a Zach Hyman type player. Obviously, Mackenzie Entwistle, younger, more talented than Hyman at this point. But I think he could be that kind of, you know, foundational player that sets everything up. He has a lot of promise, a lot of potential. Numbers throughout his junior career really don't show it, but I think if he's able to provide at least maybe 30, 40 points in a middle 6 role, I think it's going to be really great for him and great for the Blackhawks, because they got someone who has that energy, that has that drive, that determination, that can be a major difference maker for them in the future. So I'm going to really keep my eye on him and see if he can progress a little bit more and give them a little more.
Yeah. Greg, you wrote this list. Who else do you want to highlight from it?
Yeah, I just to touch on Peter's comments, I'm a big fan of Entwistle too. The progression he's made over 2 seasons has been remarkable. He's improved everywhere, and it looks he's definitely pushing to make that opening night roster, and he deserves it. Good for him. He's a good kid and deserves it. But the other guy from that list I'm super excited about is Wyatt Kaiser. That kid, he's going to turn out to be a steal, a 3rd round pick defenseman. You know, Peter said that the Hawks need more of that they need that puck moving guy. Well, he could be that guy of the future in that department. Had a fantastic year with University of Minnesota Duluth. helped them out big time. When he was in high school, when they drafted him, he was like offense first, just all over the ice. But then he got to college, and all of a sudden he became this like reliable defensive defenseman. And it was like, holy crap, this kid can do it all. And he shot up the board. Like this time last year, I don't think he was on anybody's radar. And now he's in my top. I think I have him fifth or sixth. I'll have to check, but he's in the top 10 and he's rising, and he's going to be a kid that could be in the top 2 this time next year. As I said, he's developed his defensive game. He's that puck moving mobile defenseman that GMs crave. And just I look forward. I'm excited to watch him this year at the college level and see what he can add to his game this season. I said they got him in the 3rd round, and he might be one of those players going, how the hell was he a 3rd round pick? That's out of that list. He's the one I'm most excited about, if you couldn't tell.
I'm going to echo Mackenzie Entwistle as well, because I really like how he's progressed over the last couple seasons too. So we've hit the halfway point in the show. This is the Prospects Corner presented by the Hockey Writers. Of course, if you enjoy this show, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and check out all the great shows that are across the network. Make sure to hit the notification bell for future episodes, and join us on Discord, because we can talk all day about prospects on this show. We can talk all day on prospects on Discord. So definitely check us out over there as well. And of course, check out thehockeywriters.com for all the written work from all 3 of us, and from all the other great writers that are on the Hockey Writers too. And season's getting going, so there's a ton of content coming out every day, and morning skate newsletter as well. There's a lot there, and just check it out. We're going to go into our 3rd topic, other names in the system. We mentioned him before, Wyatt Kalynuk. He got injured, but he was having a strong camp, strong preseason. And I know on Blackhawks Banter, you guys were talking about him making the roster. And, well, I mean, he's out for a while. Greg, what do you see? Will he play a big role in the Blackhawks? He'll probably be sent down to the minors when he gets back, depending on the situation up there. Do you think he'll play a big role when he recovers from that injury?
I think so. Head coach Jeremy Colton's high on him, and rightfully so. This kid's another kid that pretty much came out of nowhere last season. I mean, the Hawks didn't draft him. He was drafted by the Flyers in the 7th round, and then after he finished, he elected to become a free agent after his career at University of Wisconsin, and the Hawks pounced on him, and he had a really good first professional year last year. He had 21 games with the Hawks, played well. Every time he was in Rockford, he dominated. He dominated the AHL level last year. He had 2 goals and 10 points in 8 AHL games as a defenseman. I think he had 2 or 3 3-point games. Every time they sent him down, he'd get 3 points and they'd bring him right back up. He's again another one of these mobile defensemen. He's a future quarterback, power play quarterback. I think as soon as this year, he could be out there on that 2nd unit. Even last year, when the Blackhawks power play was one of the best in the league, it was all from that top unit. Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat, and then there were times where that unit would be on the ice the entire 2 minutes if possible. So you need to have more options, and he's definitely a guy that could help out a 2nd unit and improve the overall special teams play. He still has a lot of work to do in his own end, but we can say that about every single young defenseman in the league right now. So, but there definitely is some serious potential there, and he will be a regular in that lineup before this season is over.
Yeah, I see that too. Let's go to a forward. Our next guy is I mentioned him, Colton Dach. He was just sent back to the WHL. Peter, who do you see a future in the NHL for him? He's got his brother up there already. He obviously won't be as good as him. Do you think his skating will hold him back from becoming a prominent NHLer, or do you think he can work on that and get there?
Yeah, definitely a future NHLer. Not as exciting or as highly skilled as his older brother. I think we could all agree on that. But at the same time, I mean, the skating was the biggest knock on Colton, and that basically says it all because Kirby is a fantastic skater. I do think that he has made significant strides to improve on his speed, his agility, and his entire mechanics and how he gets it at stride. So I think if he continues to do that and work on his game overall, I think he's going to be a tremendous prospect for the Hawks. But even so, just to focus on his strengths, I mean, like he does the same thing. Like obviously, he may not have the highest ceiling like his brother, but he has the same quality. So he has that big size. He has the puck protection skills. He has a booming shot that could just be as dangerous as anybody else out there. So he has a lot of promise in him. Obviously, again, I think the best or the safe bet for him is that middle six, second, third line winger. Don't want to necessarily, exceed expectations because of what his brother or where his brother is at right now. But I do, he's a great prospect to have. I think maybe could have probably have, again, try to go back onto the selection. Maybe not much of a second rounder. It was a little bit late, so maybe you can make that argument. But I definitely think that he is another strong power forward type player that you need in your system. And I think having both him and I know I mentioned Entwistle, it's going to go well for them because you need those kind of players. You need that grit. You need that energy. And I think that Colton can really bring that.
Yeah, I love the pick when they picked him where they did, and he's gonna be really good. Greg will finish off finish us off. You're well versed in for the Rockford IceHogs. You're going to be in the press box. Who do you see from that team that that you're projecting that will break out this season? That either push for an NHL job or just have a great season down in the minors.
I'm gonna go a little different route here. I'm not necessarily predicting this guy to have a breakout season, but this is the guy that has to have the breakout season. I'm talking about Evan Barratt. This is a guy that needs to take that next step and show the improvements, or else he's not going to be on future prospect lists. He's 22. He was drafted in 2017. This is the time where you're supposed to see that improvement. And he just as we talked about Colton Dach, I'll flat out say it, he's a bad skater, and it has not been much of an improvement. Like you wanted to see, the things you can get away with at the college level, you can't get away with at the AHL level, and there was never an improvement. When it's like his technique is just not good. I don't know how he's gotten to this point. When he skates, he pretty much stands straight up, which is never a good idea. Makes you a big target, slows you down. You never really saw, he looked like the same exact player he was in college when he played in the AHL last year, and it showed. He was overmatched a lot, but he did show flashes of why the Hawks are high on him. He is a very good playmaker from the center position. He's got what everybody loves, the hockey IQ. He's very smart. He makes good plays, but he's just too freaking slow right now. So he needs to make those improvements. Now, last year, I'm going to give him the benefit of doubt. Last year was a stupid year when it came to AHL and development. Like, it was just, everything was so strange. And, shortened schedule, seasons didn't start till February. I'll give him a pass on that. But if we see the same stuff this year, there's no excuse. And it might be time to be like, okay, this guy is not going to be an NHL player. It's time to move on and give that time for development to somebody else. So I'm hoping he has a breakout season because I like him and I think he could be a good player if he gets that skating going. But that will remain to be seen.
Yeah, the Canucks have a guy like that. Sounds familiar to Jackson Kunz, and I still think he's a great prospect, but his skating could hold him back from being good. To finish off this topic, outside of the top 10 that you released, Greg, we're going to talk about outside of that top 10. Peter, who do you have that's in the system, but that Greg didn't point out?
I really think Landon Slaggert is one player that should be, not necessarily kept a close eye on, but maybe he does need to do a little bit more to get the attention of the Blackhawks staff, because there's so many other players that are jumping over him in terms of the prospect depth. And, I mentioned the size of Dach and the physicality and hard-hitting nature of Entwistle. Slaggert has that physical side to him. And I think that, if he needs to add a little bit more to it to just be known as a heavy hitter, I think that maybe he can be a very valuable pick. I haven't seen much of him lately, and I want to try and get more of a better read on him to try and see if he has a future with Chicago. But if kind of like Greg said, if there is one player that probably needs to have a make or break season or even stand out, I think my vote will probably go to Swagger, because tools are there. It's just a matter of putting it together and making that impact and showing the coaching staff that he's worth the investment.
Yeah. Greg, who do you got outside of that top 10 that people should be excited about, you're excited about?
I love Andre Altibarmakian. That kid is I love him. I think he was so impressive last season with the IceHogs, his first season here in North America. He's that guy that just, he loves to push opponents' buttons. He loves to get under people's skins, but he's got skill too. He can score. He showed it in those prospect games against the Wild. He had a couple of really good individual efforts. So he showed he could score, but he loves to be that guy that just infuriates the opponents. He's fast. He's fearless. I think he's going to be one of those like bottom six forwards that, just you hate to play against. The Blackhawks need more guys that are hard to play against. They're a team that they're too easy to play against. They are teams. I don't think teams get worried about coming into the United Center and worried about a tough game against them. They pretty much just show up, shoot as many shots as they want, leave, and maybe they don't even take a shower after the game, because it seems that they don't have to work hard against this team on most nights. Altibarmakian is going to make you work hard when he's on the ice. He's a guy you have to keep your head on a swivel against. That's a name that I think Hawks fans are going to get to know here in another year or so, maybe even as quick as this year, depending on injuries and performance-wise. But I love this kid. He's never going to be an all-star or a Hart Trophy candidate, but he's going to be a fan favorite in Chicago.
You got to love his name, too.
Oh, yeah. I want him to make it this year, because this is the last season for Pat Foley, who has been known to have trouble with names. I want to hear him scream out Altibarmakian with a goal at least once before he retires. I need that in my life.
Yeah, for sure. Now we've got to the point of the show, around the horn quickfire. A couple questions here. We mentioned it before. The Blackhawks have a lot of defensemen in their prospect pool. Past Lukas Reichel, who do they have? I mean, that could push for a top 6 spot. Greg, who do you got in there?
I don't think they have them yet. To be top seriously, top 6, I see a lot of middle 6, bottom 6 role players in the organization. They don't have another dynamic top 6 candidate right now. They need to go draft about 4 or 5 of them.
Peter, you agree that they have no one, or is there someone that's pushing?
What Greg said.
I'll echo the same, because I don't see anyone else. I mean, Lukas Reichel is your best prospect, your best forward prospect, and your best top 6 guy right now. And yeah, they definitely need to. That's why they should have drafted a forward in the first round and kept that pick. We'll see how Seth Jones does to make that worth it. But yeah, so that was a quick one. The next one, predict the future. Will the Blackhawks have a lottery pick in 2022? If so, who do they target at that point? I'm going to say probably a forward, but just predicting. Let's start with you on this one, Peter.
If they are going to be in that 3 to 6 range, obviously, yeah, you have to think they have to go for a forward. And in this top 10, there is an ample amount of talent for the forwards. And I think you have 2 options to go. You can either go a Patrick Kane route, where you have a solid playmaker, but a smaller player, or basically the same size as Patrick Kane, in Matthew Savoy. Strong puck movement, strong vision. For a smaller player, he does have great. He knows how to protect the puck well. So I think again, size really isn't an issue there. But I know some people are going to put that as a knock on him. But still, a fantastic player that could be in that 3 to 6 range. I think maybe outside the top 5, he shouldn't be there. Or I'm looking at a goal scorer, Joaquin Kemmo, who's just absolutely tearing it up right now. So you want to go for a playmaker. Go for Savoy. But I think if you want a game breaker and a go-to guy, you're going Kemmel, and I think he would be the perfect fit for them.
Yeah, I know it's early, and I know Blackhawks fans aren't liking this discussion, Greg, but if they have a lottery pick, who would they pick? And will they have a lottery pick? First question.
I think that depends on what they do behind the bench. If they stick with Jeremy Colton the full season, they will have a lottery pick. If they make the smart move and hire a real NHL coach, they have a talent enough. This is the best roster we've had in the post Joe Quenneville era. If they have proper guidance, this is a team that could sneak into a playoff spot. With Marc-Andre Fleury and the improvements they made on the defense, Jonathan Toews is healthy and back. Kirby Dach is healthy and back. On paper, they should contend for a playoff spot, but we all know that the games are played on ice and not paper. So if they stick with my favorite coach of all time, Jeremy Colton, they will be in the lottery. As far as a specific player, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I haven't done a ton of homework on the 2022 class yet. So I'm not going to name a specific player, but if they get a top 10 pick, you got to go with a dynamic goal scoring forward. You need it so bad in your organization right now. Listen, Patrick Kane, spoiler alert, he's not going to be here much longer. Okay. He already showed signs of slowing down last year. He's saying it's a nagging injury. He's been less than good in the preseason so far. Maybe he's finally starting to go, the wrong side of the hill. Jonathan Toews, not going to be here forever. You got to get these guys to take their spot. It's the glory years were great. They were fun. It's probably time to put that behind us and start thinking of the future. You need that superstar talent that they don't have in the organization right now.
I could have predicted the Jeremy Colton. So
yeah, it's kind of it's kind of my thing. On one hand, I can't I think he's an awful coach, but on the other hand, it's become my shtick about bitching about him every week. So, do I keep the shtick or do I get satisfied with coaching? It's a fine line.
We'll see what happens there with him and Blackhawks. So we made it to end of another show. We're on this is episode 6 already. I mean, we've done quite a few already, and the next team, we'll see who's going to be, but we'll be back next week with another deep dive and with a lot more 2022 draft stuff as well in the future. So thank you for watching. We've been very fortunate to get a ton of views on a really new show. So thank you for tuning in every week. We appreciate it. Make sure you're hitting that notification bell and subscribe to the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. There's a ton of shows there. Hit the like button, give us a like, give us a comment on anything that you're hearing here. Love to hear some comments on our shows. We'll be getting a lot more, I'm sure, once the draft gets going. Thank you for joining us. It's been fun, and the fun will continue next week. For Greg and Peter, this is Matthew, and we'll see you next time in the Prospect Corner.